Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. In this episode, we are going to be discussing the topic of masks we wear. And I have with me three guests, Bo, Claire, and Dan. All are in incognito, so you will not see their face. You have no choice but to look at this pretty face. I'm not this red, but I don't know why the video showed me this red. And actually, I kind of don't mind it. Anyways, everybody go say hi, introduce yourself if you want to. Do you want to say hi?
Hey, I'm Bo. Don't know. There's nothing much to say. I'm just a guy.
Claire?
Hi, I'm Claire. Um, yeah, I'm 20 years old and I'm a university student.
Where is your address? No, I'm just kidding. That was supposed to be in incognito. But that is good. And I have Dan here, but Dan has put his mic on. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan. Hello, everybody. I think I met Bo. I've never met Claire, and of course I know Mo. So, hello, everybody.
Yeah, hi there. So anyways, the mask we wear, and this is, I think, a very interesting conversation. However, before we get started, I want to just kind of clarify when we say that, is it real or are we just using the term wrongly? Because when we say the mask we wear, it means that when we are pretending to be somebody who we are not. But sometimes, depending on the situations that we have, for example, or different circumstances, we might show different angles of who we are, but really it's not masking. For example, when I'm at home, obviously, I behave a little, not behave differently, but it's a different environment. I dress differently. When I'm with my friends, maybe I speak more freely. When I'm doing my podcast, I may have to, keep a bit of a guidelines as well as, or when I'm at work. I cannot behave exactly the same way all across. So this is not really masking as far as I'm concerned. It's just different angles of the same person in different circumstances. If I'm closer with somebody as a friend, I may, behave a little bit differently and more comfortable than somebody else. Or in different situations, if somebody is going through something, I may behave a little bit differently. So that's not masking. But masking becomes, again, when we behave in a way, and when I'm saying that, it's kind of intentionally, the way that we are not, it's not real, who we are. Another thing is that, for example, when we are in a work environment, sometimes we are forced into behaving a certain way, to dress a certain way. For example, if you are doing the customer service somewhere, we are kind of more required to behave more maturely. If you have a difficult customer, we cannot be rude towards them. We have to, learn how to deal with that. Now, sometimes these guidelines are not such a bad thing. If we choose to, for example, when I'm at work, I force myself to tolerate people and not to be rude towards them. So that makes it a bit difficult. But maybe the smarter way is to learn how to handle difficult people all the time. If I'm learning it at work, I can bring it home. At home, I'm going to run into the same situation, or my personal life. So then sometimes this masking really is not masking at that point. At least that is not how I see it. It is different situations. We are required to behave differently, and it's not such a bad thing. It's discipline. That is why we are teaching, our children to behave a certain way, after some time. Yes, they are more free when they are a kid, but as they grow up, we have to teach them. And at the end of the day, we all have some rough corners. We cannot exactly behave the way that we are. And if we choose to do so, we cannot live together. We have to compromise. That is how a society comes to existence. Otherwise, it becomes a chaos. So sometimes this misunderstanding is there that, it is not masking. There are some rules. However, at some points, it becomes masking. It is, for example, once we are doing this from Regina, Saskatchewan. For people that they don't know, anywhere we want to go in the whole country, if you want to travel anywhere, we have to go through Calgary. And Anyway, I was in Calgary, actually coming back to Regina. Then I ran into, I mean, I saw this gentleman that I knew him, but he was very pretentious when he was at the airport. He didn't see me, but I noticed that. And I think he was trying to, I don't know, present a different personality that is very important or something. As soon as he saw me, he was taken aback. And I noticed that he felt uncomfortable. Of course, that is a kind of, I would say, masking that was the impression I got, that he was trying to present a different personality whom he is not. And we see that sometimes, or sometimes it happens when we go in let's say, a gathering, it gets forced upon us to some extent that, because this gathering, for example, people are acting in a certain way and you have to be cool and fit in, then all of a sudden you see that you have to play the same game, otherwise you will be like a sore thumb. So anyway, the difference, sometimes this masking part again is the way I see it, sometimes it is not really masking, and the times that it is something voluntarily that we are doing it. We are kind of pushing actually that on others, or sometimes it gets pushed upon us, and then we budge in and we just try to fit in. But anyway, so if any of you has a story to share about this masking, I would like to hear from you, as well as now that I explained the difference between masking and something different version of us. Does this affect the way that maybe you're using the word the masking in regards to some certain behaviors? Anybody has anything to say?
I got something here. So this masking thing, right? We learned about this in high school, right? It was Christian ethics. I'm sure you like that one. Um, so they talked about this, how the masks people wear and blah blah, right? All that same stuff, right? But I tend to more agree with what you're saying, how it's not really masking, it's just different situations. You just act differently, but you're still who you are. And I wonder sometimes when people talk about this, if it's not more of a lesson, just you're supposed to watch out for people who you see when they talk about people having masks, it's more like people who are lying or people who are being false, like you're saying, like a person who is like a pedophile in real life, but then is normal when you see them, right? Like that's more what people are. I think that was where this whole thing started, was the mask people wear because there is evil out there, right? And that's what they're talking about when they're talking about masks. They're not talking about um, like just the subtle nuances that we go through in our day-to-day life where we have to act differently because of the situation dictates that. I think is deeper. And over the years, we just made it surface level. It's
Of
it's it's
course,
it's, it's meant it's meant to identify when someone is wearing a mask, so we can identify people that we shouldn't be around.
that was a very extreme example that you use with the pedophile thing, but we all have
Oh, of course.
some. Of course, you should do that. We all have, again, some, as I said, rough edges. If I wanted to behave exactly the way that I want to, probably I would not have too many friends. And when we compromise, that is exactly what we are doing. When
I
we,
think it's I
at,
think it, I think it's deeper than that.
okay,
Like I think it's farther down. Like not just that, yeah, we all have rough edges and stuff. I think the mask thing is about like people who are really problems, like because there are people who are not good out there, right? And I think that the mask thing is just for us to be able to identify who those people are.
Claire, you had something to say. Please go ahead.
I think I agree with Bo, but I also think that um, masks can be used as protection, like not just hiding the evil, but protecting yourself from the evil. Like another extreme example of this, but like say like a gay person in a country that it's unsafe for them to be gay, like where people are still being killed for that. like they would hide that part of themselves. So that part of them is not evil, but they're protecting themselves from the evil that might, come on to them if they are really being who they are, is
That's a
what
good
I
one.
thought.
I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, you're totally right.
But
And
I do
again,
agree with that, what you said before, though. I think it can be both.
of course, if you want to go into depth, to be honest, it can go a far, far away. And I try to address the basic examples of it, basic scenarios. And then somehow that is more, we don't go too far deep. Because I believe when we go too far deep, then it becomes uh, I don't know, too complicated. And really, I like
Oh,
to
come on, we want to
stick.
go deep.
I like my principle of life is simple. We make it complicated to simplify it, and to that will which will address. This is it, which will address 80-90% of the situations. It's not going to address them 100%, but if we can address, as I said, the most of the scenarios that this happens, we are good enough. That's why I don't want to go to very deep and specific the things that are rare to happen. Rather, it's the things that are very common that happens. Like for example, when we do masking, for example, in a social gathering, those things that people they pretend, sometimes become pretentious. That's what I'm talking about. Claire, go ahead, please.
I was thinking maybe a smaller example of this, correct me if I'm wrong, but could be like, if someone asks you how you're doing and you say you're doing good because you don't want to bring the mood down because you're not really doing good, especially in a social gathering and stuff like that,
Mhm.
could that be used as a smaller example, maybe?
You know, it's not a, it doesn't cause any harm. I mean, it's better actually if you say I'm good, so just let the things move on. There are more important things to worry about.
No way.
Yeah,
I
you
tell
don't.
people that I feel like shit all the time.
If
Like,
it is okay, if it is something that really seriously, seriously, I'm feeling horrible, and then someone says, "How are you doing?" and say, "I'm fine." Maybe that's not the best thing. Again, you want to look at the big picture. This is how I look at it. If it is just a small thing, oh, let it just go. I'm not going to talk about it. But something really bothers me, I say, no, no, I'm not feeling that well, and then I will let the person. I mean, I'm hoping, if it would be a person that I think can help me, then I would be a lot more honest with them. But if I, for example, tell them that I'm not feeling well, and I don't have that impression, for example, that they can help. What's the outcome? What am I
well,
asking for?
the point is that you don't want to get into it with them. Just that as long as they know, hey, he's not really in the greatest mood today, so they kind of leave you alone. You know?
I think, again, the way I'm looking at it, I think we are going too far in a lots of different case scenarios, and uh, that one I believe, if generally we understand the concept of it, then I think we can figure out which ones we should do or not do. And the wording, I'm not gonna get us stuck that much on the words, because I'm sure if somebody is more educated in the field, they will have the right term for all of these case scenarios that we talked about. However, again, when I'm masking, for example, this is one of the cases that it's a personal story, that I used to date this lady who is much more educated than me and makes a lot more money than me, but I'm better looking. Naturally, she was a very good looking lady as well. And once, as she lives in she has a very beautiful house. She lives in a very rich area of the town. And then they had a neighborhood party. And then so they would go to start at like 5 or 6 in the PM. It is in summer. And then for 1 hour at each house. And then when we went to these houses, everybody has their best behavior, on their best behavior. The food and drinks are just extravagant, because everybody was relatively rich. And then actually, I was probably one of the poorest, if not the poorest person there. And that most of them are well educated. Probably I was one of the least educated one there. And then so anyway, we went through one house to the other, and then at the end we ended up to one of the guys that the guy makes in millions, so that's rich, and then he has a wine rack, And then he talks about the, variety of these wines that he has. And the cheapest, I think, was $700. The most expensive, I think, like $3,500 bottle. And then he pulls one out and opens it. He says, "This is $2,700."
Oh,
And then
I'd be
he,
so scared to drink that.
what's that?
I would never want to drink that. I'd feel like I was wasting money.
Well, of course, the guy makes millions. To be honest, it was nothing for him. Again, personally, I don't think I would ever do that. But
Did
I
it
don't,
taste any different than the $20 one?
actually, I'm going to get that. Don't rush
Okay.
me.
Oh, sorry.
So what happened? Then he pours a little bit of the wine for everybody, but this is a bigger group of us. So I'm with a few people in one car. When we drink this, I said it tastes awful. Everybody was acting, no, it tastes very good because they are supposed to say that. And everybody fell for it. Oh, wow, what a taste. This tastes not less, a dollar less than $2,700 per bottle. You know, but when I tasted it, I said, this tastes awful. I prefer my $10 bottle of wine better than this. And in all honesty, I did. Now, if somebody, I don't know, I'm not a wine guy to begin with, but I didn't like the taste at all. It was really awful. But because I was acting a lot of myself, I didn't really try to fit in. I did not work on that at all. And actually, I was the only one who had an accent. And but I just acted the way that I wanted. Of course, within the parameters, I should say that I didn't tell the guy that your wine tastes awful. I don't know him. But if I knew him, maybe depending on the situation, maybe would have told him that, why do you spend $2,700 on this damn thing? But regardless, so when I said that, then others, they felt more comfortable. And they started actually to talk about that, yeah, it doesn't taste good. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes the environment that we create, we impose it on each other. And then others often they fall for it. And nobody takes that leap of faith to just do it. And the conversation continued. This is the funny part of the conversation. Then this lady that I was dating, she started, making comments on the underwear that I was wearing. I was wearing briefs, not boxers. So she started telling those, people in our group that, yeah, he wears briefs. Somebody talked to him. And then I started defending myself. Whoa, whoa, I'm a briefs guy. And anyways, so the conversation continued. Then I asked the guys, hey, do you guys wear briefs or boxers? Because she says this, but I don't know. And anyways, the conversation was, to be honest, very funny. Maybe doesn't sound as funny right now because you guys are kind of boring, but it was really funny. And we had a few drinks at the time, obviously. And then after that, party that when it finished, a few days after, the lady that I was dating at the time, she said, Mo, they loved you. And I didn't expect that, to be honest. But she said, you know what? They just loved you. It was so much fun. But I think one of the very main reason was that everybody was trying to act, and that becomes tiring. For so long, you can do the acting. And somebody breaks the ice, you see that everybody falls in, jumps in. And they did, they jumped in. And they started talking a little more freely. And we had some other conversation that they were a lot more honest about it. But again, the moral of the story is sometimes it gets imposed on us. Sometimes we impose it on others when we don't accept them the way that they are. And so it can be. So I'm hoping that we are not that person. We force somebody or we make them uncomfortable if they express who they are. So I don't know. Does anybody have a story to share?
I
No?
can't think of anything. I was trying to think of things for like the last couple of days. And since I'm old now, I just don't care enough to, you know, put on a big mask, really.
Hmm. Normally, as we get older, I think it becomes that. We are a lot more aversive. We have learned that it becomes tiring. When we are younger, I think Keller is the youngest. I don't know how do the young people act nowadays? Do you guys try to fit in? Because normally I say that if you try to fit in, then you don't stand out. That is another thing. But Claire, do you guys, I mean, you guys, when I say the younger generation, they try to be themselves, more open, or really they try to fit in?
I as I've gotten older, like in high school, definitely was trying to fit in. And I even see it with my sister. She's in grade 11 now, always trying to do what the mass is doing because she doesn't want anybody to make fun of her. And I was like that in high school, but since going to university and seeing so many different people from like literally all over the world, I've gotten more comfortable, but I still catch myself doing it, but especially more so when I'm in my hometown because it's smaller. I catch myself doing it more just because I don't know why. Like, I don't even see these people from high school anymore, but I want them to like me still. I'm like, I don't even see you guys for like 8 months of the year. But no, I definitely do catch myself doing it, but not as much in university. But it also could be because I'm taking classes that are like I'm taking them with people that are like-minded like me. Like I'm in social work, so there's usually a certain set of views and opinions that are in those classes. So that also could play a part in it. But
When you say that, actually, you said that, you want to be liked or something in that line that you mentioned. Actually, you might be surprised. A lot of time, if you act more of yourself, you might be surprised that, people like you more and you like you more. And during this process, not everybody will. But remember, the ones that they don't, to be honest, maybe you don't want them around anyways, because often it becomes difficult to keep acting and pretending and to play a role. Yeah, just be yourself. And again, definitely, we are going to show some of our bad behaviors that we have. And that is very good. When we are more of ourselves, we show our mistakes, then what will happen? Somebody potentially will point it out, or we realize that, we are, let's say, pissing people off. And then that is how we come to know that there is something is wrong. Now we can decide to make it better, or maybe just be okay with it and accept the consequences. But it's much better and easier, to be honest, to be yourself. A lot of time we think that the consequences are going to be good if we pretend to be somebody else. But the reality, I think, in the big picture is different. Again, the
I
case
don't know,
scenarios.
Mo.
Go ahead.
You and I, we have had some humdinger of arguments where we're at each other's throat. You clearly disagree with me.
Mhm.
I clearly disagree with you. At the end of the day, we can disagree. And, next week we talk again. And it's just sort of like, okay, whatever. You know, maybe one week I like Hezbollah. Next week, we might be talking about Palestinians. Yeah, there's a lot of world events, stuff like that. But what I found is that, you want to be authentic. You certainly do. But, the context is so important. There's little things like reputation that's involved. There's things like, there's kind of more personal spaces, people, personal relationships, family relationships. All of these things are very, um, if you want to burn every bridge, I suppose all the more power to you. But some of it is you will be punished. You think the wrong thing, you say the wrong thing. There's literally, and I could probably draw from the kind of media reports. You say something like in British Columbia, like that school trustee says that, what did he even say? He got dragged in front of the Human Rights Commission and they fined him $750,000 because of a bunch of anonymous teachers were really somehow their safe space was invaded by his words. And so he's got a three
Tell
quarter of a
tell
million dollar.
elaborate more on
So,
that. What's happening there?
oh, well, he's just this old guy. He's a school board trustee somewhere in somewhere in Vancouver, one of the school districts, school divisions. And basically he was like, he's just really old school. What's a school all about? Well, the 3 R's. And you deal with the infrastructure, and you deal with, there's probably labor relations and stuff like that. He wasn't into all the newfangled, every transvestite, every tranny, everybody who's got a gender identity issue or whatever. He just didn't have time for that. He was just sort of like, not interested. I think it's all kind of kind of baloney. I've been, I'm an old man. We can run a school division without ever. He's been around decades. And, this, as far as he was concerned, the thing was sort of a fad.
If you
And he
don't
was
mind,
very,
if
very
you don't
public
mind,
about
because
it.
we are getting a bit off the topic.
Oh, come on, I'm
And that,
interested in that.
no, but it's a different topic. And actually, I would love to
Ah,
talk about that, but we'll have it in
But,
another, for
but the point
another
is,
podcast.
the, the point is, your personal life intersects with these other
Mhm.
areas of living. Um, you could certainly, your example about at the dinner party. Sure, if you want to shoot your mouth off, sure, whatever. I hate your wine. I think your house is ugly. I think your wife is fat. I mean, you could, and that could be exactly what you feel. But what's the penalty? Well, you just don't get invited back, right? You think, holy shit, that Nazari guy, what a goofball. I can't believe. Now they might even be laughing. It's like, yeah, my wife is fat. Oh, did you see the
Okay.
did you see the side eye she gave him? That was classic Mo. But it would just be, the penalties in that arena are pretty, relatively
Of
minor.
course, if you remember, as I said, I never said it in front of his face, I said it, behind his back. I was not rude. Not just kidding. But I was honest about the wine among our own group. I didn't say it to
Sure.
him. And
And
I
then
know, and another thing, when you said, and Dan, actually, I know Dan for a long, long time. And that he's right. We have had a lots of disagreements on lots of things. And interesting enough, every time he's wrong and I'm right, which is just amazing.
interestingly enough, I'm always expecting Mo to throw me out of his house, but it doesn't happen. Like I have to admit that Mo, he can be closed-minded, but he's not. How should we say? He's not going to punish you for thinking differently. He might disagree with you. He might think you're Jesus. You're just one. What a stupid guy. But most of it happens in good faith.
Mhm.
And sometimes I learn something. Sometimes you kind of maybe learn something. You never know.
But actually, I
The
should say, you reminded me of something, Dan. Once I said that having a close circle of friends ends up to having a close circle of thought. So I do not look for agreements by any means. I look for a decent conversation, logical, more than emotional. And yes, we have had a lot of disagreements. But again, the reason our relationship has continued, and I should say Dan is one of my best friends, and it is because that is how we learn from each other. But when I said that, for example, sometimes some people may break up with you and they don't continue with their friendship. I'm talking about scenarios that they want a fake person. They want somebody. And if they want that, you don't get it here. This is who I am. I have said it before that, for example, I have friends, as you probably most of you know, I mean, Bo and Dan for sure, they know about this. I have friends coming over all the time. And Dan, actually, back to what you said, I normally practice, I believe you agree with this. I practice what I preach to a very good extent, but yet I have a lots of good friends, to be honest. It's not that, by being myself, I don't just say whatever. No, I try to be respectful. I try to be kind, but I'm not trying to be nice. I'm respectful, but not necessarily polite. There is a huge difference. That is more of an act, but I practice to a very good extent what I preach. And anyway, for that reason, my relationships are very genuine. But if sometimes some people they cannot handle harsh and disagreement, conversation, then they might choose to stop, and that is just fine. I'm not going to agree with them necessarily. If I don't agree, I let them know. If there is, I mean, if there is a ground for it, if there is a reason and there is some benefit out of it, because sometimes if I disagree with somebody, I just break their heart and they're not going to change anyways, or at least I don't feel that. Just let it be.
Yeah,
Unless if I see there is a value.
and so is that a mask though, Mo? I mean,
I
to me,
would,
it sounds like a judgment call, but
mhm.
are you putting on the mask? I'm just going to be quiet now because it's not, doesn't make any difference.
In my definition, I
Sometimes
wouldn't call it.
I don't think that
so it,
not being a jerk is putting a mask on. Like you can be who you are, but you don't have to go out of your way to be mean.
yeah, no, I would agree with that. But certainly some people, that's not how they're going to take it.
Again,
Uh,
actually, back to how they take it, that's their responsibility. Normally, I say, I'm responsible to be as honest and kind as possible. How you take it, that's your responsibility. If you misunderstand me, ask for question. It's not necessarily every time my responsibility for others to understand me right. If they misunderstood me, if they need clarification, ask.
no, that,
The
yeah, no, that
same,
makes
the
sense.
same way that way. Because I know sometimes we say that, oh, you should be very clear, you should be responsible for it. No, there are people that they are there to take, to misunderstand you. There are some people that they just are professional complainers. There is nothing you can do to, satisfy them. That the shame is on them. But anyways, when I was trying to say about this thing that acting is a little bit different. It's like somebody act confident, but they are not comfortable with who they are. That is an act, and those acting, for so long you can act. I have actually maybe mentioned this. I have this friend that obviously I'm not gonna say. I'm gonna say, and even the gender. Sometimes I say he, she. I confuse things because if there are other people that are close friends, they know I don't. I want to confuse everybody, so you cannot trust the gender at all. But let's say this person, he grew up in a family that there were too many rules. So he was pushed upon, in my opinion, the way that I know him, that to fit in and accept that because he had no choice. Then as he grew up, then afterwards he went to the work environment, and after that marriage. And the way I can see him, he every time has tried to fit in to the extent that right now he's an older gentleman and he does not know who he is exactly. We have had this conversation. I have had this conversation with this person, and that sometimes he's confused and he says, I enjoyed this. For example, we had gone in one incident, we went, maybe we had a hangout with him quite a bit. We had gone to a party and then he said that he really enjoyed it. I said, actually, I don't think you did. Neither did I. It was it was something, and because I know him, but then I have been with him in some other scenarios that we were more relaxed. And then he realized afterwards that how good he felt. It was a feeling that he hadn't experienced. It was one incident that I'm not going to get into details of it, that he became really himself, that he dropped all the guards. But sometimes, again, because of the household uh, restrictions that are within the family, then I'm guessing I don't want to act like a psychologist, but sometimes they learn how to fit in and they carry that with them. Of course,
Well,
the question.
you didn't go to school in this country, but the that seems to be the whole point of education is to get young people to conform to whatever the social narrative is. And if you go too far out of bounds, you get hammered. There's sanctions. There's things that you
Mhm.
can't really. And so, I mean, certainly the family is sort of an element of that, but I also think that the it's a larger system, and I know you don't want to go too far into
Mhm.
the larger social kind of economic things, but when you see how so many people have been raised through the school system, they go through the like my daughter right now, she's learning all about the truth and reconciliation. And when she comes home, and starts talking about that, I just laugh my head off. I think that's some of the stupidest stuff I've ever heard. And she is, what should I say, kind of confused. She think, oh, you're being mean. I'm like, well, let's talk about it. But it's sort of, again, I don't want to hijack your meeting here too
Hmm.
much, but that's the only reason I can see it is because first of all, I've studied the history. I've read a lot of the documents. I lived through a lot of it. And I know what they're getting in the schools right now, even in the university system, is so absolutely novel,
Again,
just
it's a
out of
little bit,
nowhere.
yeah, it's a
And
little
then
bit,
if you go against it, they're going to get punished.
it, I'm
So the
going to
whole
say this.
environment kind of is
Again,
about conditioning and what you can say and what's appropriate to say and what's appropriate to believe. Like these are not accidental. It's just the family, or maybe the dad was mean or the mom was kind of crazy. I mean, I think it's a lot deeper.
then when we talk about this, actually, sometimes there is actually, I mean, for me, it's pretty clear, I think. Of course, I'm a bit older too, and I kind of had more experience than a younger person like Keller in here. Uh, That some of the things that you're saying, I don't know how to even mention. Some of the things that you're saying is a little bit too far from one side, in my opinion. But again, I just leave that alone. What I'm trying to say that yes, we should conform a little bit to have a society. Otherwise, we would not have a society. And as I said, we have a lot of bad behaviors. For example, let's say somebody is violent, inherently, is violent. They cannot go practice that violence. Somebody is a pedophile. The case that, both said that, and that's very unfortunate that they are, born, with that, deficiency, but they cannot go practice it. And a lot of other behaviors that are not as bad, in a less with less severity, that we all do have some of those things. We have no option but to conform. Some of we have to force ourselves. Sometimes it's better if we really, understand if it is something bad, not to do it and stay away from it. One thing that I would say now, for example, for myself, I cannot say for sure, but I think I have some of anger issues. And I did in the past. But over time, and at one point, I was trying to resist. But now I have learned over time how not to get angry to begin with, the prevention part of it. Then I don't have to, stop myself from that. So, or I started thinking differently. And that has helped quite a bit. And normally I say this is a very important part. The way that you think dictates the way that you feel. And personally, I think I have done a pretty good job of that. That, for example, I do not get angry, people that they know me now, versus, I mean, you know me, Dan, for a lot of years. I'm sure probably can attest to this. In the past, I would lose my shit, sometimes. Very easy. But now I'm really a pretty cool guy, right? But
Well,
seriously,
let's test that. How far can I push you tonight, hey?
but no, seriously, anyway, now I'm at it. I should say, I remember even with yourself once that we went to Vancouver, that for the train ticket, I behaved really badly, and to be honest, I have never ever brought it up. I don't know if you remember that, but I have to apologize for that. Because you bought the train ticket, it was a little bit expensive. Then I complained about that, and anyways, uh, so what I'm trying to say, but now because of the way of thinking, it has changed. So sometimes when I say it is important to know when it is masking versus it's not, it will help us to think differently about it. That are we going to say it's a good thing or it's a bad thing? Are we going to do it and promote it in somebody else, or are we going to condemn it? So it's very important to have the right understanding of it. Is it good or bad? And sometimes it's needed. I understand that. But again, as I said, being honest, which I think I practice it to a very good extent, but of course with some restraint, or I try to where that honesty is constructive. Sometimes that honesty can be destructive. So I'm not going to be honest in that case scenario, because if I see that it causes more harm than, be helpful. So, and sometimes I can be wrong in my calculation too, but the intentions are right. And then when we learn over time that where to be honest, how honest we want to be, then that's another story. But that is a starting point. So at the end of the day, again, I would say that it is important not to abuse the word mask. Sometimes it is not masking. A lot of time actually is not. And the times that they are, then we have to realize why. If you want to pretend that I'm somebody else that I'm not, and there is no pressure on me. Sometimes we force it upon each other, though, then if I do it for no good reason, I have to sit down that. Why am I pretending that? Go ahead, Dan. Did you want to say something?
I feel like you're talking about like an 80s sitcom.
Uh-huh. Uh, over that, I don't know what that is, but sure.
Well, no,
Again,
like how like guys just always want to try to get with chicks. All of a sudden, they're pretending to be a doctor or something.
mm,
Like a Cheers or something, right? You know,
Yeah.
that's just what I thought of when you were saying that. I was like, oh, it feels like we're living in TV land, not real life.
when
Yeah,
they
and I
say
think that's a
that,
good point, is that it is sort of always a kind of a dramatic, how should we say, it's kind of a plot device that gets used a lot. And yeah, it is kind of has a sort of a sitcom level to it. It's usually at the end there's a big reveal. Okay, then suddenly the honesty comes out. There seems to be tons of movies, the romantic comedies. They're kind of sometimes they're based on some kind of a misunderstanding. They people they're really made for each other, but there's something happens and they misunderstand, and but at then there's the moment of catharsis when the truth comes out, and it's like, oh, awesome, finally, honesty, the truth.
of
So
course,
yeah,
we are talking.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
So,
and
so,
those things would never happen in real life. You're sitting there watching this movie, going, that would not happen because you would simply talk to this person. It's like,
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah.
first of all, Killer, you just have been left out. These guys are just taking over. Let me
I'm
let
too
me
young to
help you.
know 80s sitcom. I'm just kidding.
That's history. You'd have to go to the archives to find that out.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes this expression that they say, fake it till you make it, I would say what a sad thing that, when we make a bad behavior as if it is good. I understand sometimes, for example, Bo, the one time you said, you pretend something because you want to get something. Myself, I did that. For example, I wanted to buy this business building that I have. When I wanted to buy it, those days I had a Mercedes. I drove my Mercedes into the parking lot as if I owned the place, acted as if I have all the money, that I need, and he acted that way, and it worked in my favor. Of course, really, did it work? I don't know. It worked. I got the building, but was it because of that? So sometimes we think that a behavior that you're doing, if it works, we might contribute it towards this bad behavior.
I
But
don't know.
I'm
I
not sure
think
if
you're
you're
over.
right.
I think you're overthinking that one. You just did that stuff because you felt like doing it. It's got nothing to do with anything else.
Okay, now this is your take, and that was my take. So this is what I'm saying. And who is telling the truth? I don't know. But at the end of the day, again, it's better to be as much as possible honest. But to fake it to make it, I personally do not believe in that. And again, with honesty, what will happen? Uh, as I said, you show your flaws, and when you show your flaws, somebody's going to highlight it. And at what point you decide that what you want to do with that flaw, and you become a better person, hopefully. But if you do not show who you are, and every time you fake it, then you never show your real you, and there is nothing to fix every time. And it's a game that you're playing for your whole life, and it becomes very hard and boring. And at one point, I mean, people, they realize that and then again, back to what Dan said earlier, when I'm saying, I think to a very good extent person, I practice that. But when I disagree with somebody, like such as yourself, Dan, it never affected our relationship. Actually, if anything, we have a very good friendship. uh
It would have if I'd joined Hezbollah. I would have turned you. I would have turned you into the Revolutionary Guard. Say, get that guy.
That might have been a good thing at this point, I should tell you that. But anyway, let's not leave those politics aside for now. But again, at the end of the day, it is not the agreements and actually that they make the friendships stronger. Is when the friendship they get tested, when it is during the hard times. And if we just fake it all the time, and everything you say, oh, it's so nice. Oh, I love that. I love your shirt. I love your ugly shirt. And, something like this thing. If we just fake it all the time, the value is gone. I have a friend, that I was telling Claire the other day, I have a friend that anything she says, oh, I love this. I love that. And then loves everything. So I don't know, when you're saying something, are you really telling me the truth or you're just saying it? Keller, go ahead. You're the only one who raises hand. I'm not jumping in. So go ahead, please.
When you brought up that, like, your friend always saying that they like somebody, or sorry, their shirt or something like that. Um, After our conversation, I actually caught myself doing that. I was at work and this girl, she looked so sad, and I told her I liked her shirt. Her shirt was like okay, it was fine. And I was really, because then it made me think back to our conversation on that. And I would never tell my friend that I like her shirt if it's ugly. But she looked so sad. And like, I don't see the point. Like, I don't see the problem with like a white lie if it's to cheer someone up. Like, she was just so sad. And she had the biggest smile on her face after I told her I liked her shirt. And she told me where it was from, how much it was. She just wanted to talk about her shirt after that. And I know it was only like probably only a temporary fix to whatever she was feeling. Um, but I don't know. I just feel like I wouldn't do that with my friends, right? But I
Actually,
just
no,
feel like,
I love the fact, that you just, this was a very good example. But was it really because of the shirt, or if you had just talked to her and she would have talked about something that she's passionate about, would it have the same effect? It
yeah,
was a good start,
probably.
though. It was a very good
Yeah.
start, though. Sometimes it's not the shirt thing, but it was the conversation after that. But if you finish it, I
Yeah.
love your shirt, and then after that, okay, I'm doing my job, probably nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of be clear. And then if this, and really she felt good because you had a decent conversation with her, maybe you can have a decent conversation with her without discussing the shirt.
Well, sometimes it's just like an icebreaker.
And that is good. If you're using it for that reason, no, good on you. Really, very good. But again, you have to know why you are doing it. So it's not as easy to just put a tag on it and say good or bad. It's just that, yeah, what's the intention? The why part of it becomes the reason that you want to repeat the same thing, or yeah. No, I understand that. Maybe I should learn and do that. Although I don't see you guys at all, I don't see your face, but you look very good. If that makes you feel good. But no, at the end of the day, again, uh, when we try to fit in, I would say that's a problem. And the bigger picture, I'm not saying every time. If you're not feeling good, yeah, you don't want to ruin somebody else's day. Sure, you can say you had a good day, but generally try to be as honest as possible. And that honesty, again, sometimes it creates a bit of a friction. Now, the friendship that they can take that and they deepen, they are the friendship that you want. Dan is one. And if there is somebody that they're not really into a deeper relationship and they are just superficial, if they wash away, to be honest, they are not going to have the biggest impact in your life anyway. So that is where I'm going with this. I'm hoping with this conversation, everybody that is listening to it, as well as, you guys yourself, that makes you think twice, about what we do and what the intentions are. And, hopefully it is to be more constructive than, I don't know, than pretentious, for the sake of our own, that you want to show that how strong I am or how rich I am or something. That is the pretentious part that is not good. But if the intention is you do maybe a white line, like what you mentioned, Claire, there, but with the intention to, it's an icebreaker to start the conversation to make somebody feel good, that's awesome. But you can use that tactic for other things too. Does anybody have anything to add? I saw
I don't think
pause.
I can go a day without showing someone how strong I am. Like this seems crazy to me.
You are a strong boy.
Yeah.
We should arm wrestle one day on Zoom.
Oh,
Uh, the part of the mass thing, I know in psychology there's a disorder, I think it's called a borderline personality disorder. And what that kind of translates into is that the person has a hard time understanding where he ends and where the other person begins. And so a lot of so if you're hyperconformist, or if you're always trying somehow to please other people, sometimes it's because you're just not quite, you think they're you or you're them. And there's just this blurring that happens. And it becomes, it can become pathological. But if you have a strong personality, if you got strong borders, then you probably shouldn't really care. You could say whatever you want, and whatever the consequences that come out of that, that's just they are what they are kind of thing. But and this I think kind of gets back into some of the larger social conditioning that people get, is they are kind of induced into this, I wouldn't say it's like a clinical disorder, but you're always thinking about, how is the other person going to feel? How is blah, 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 blah. And then it gets overthought. And if I say this, they'll feel bad, and then I'll feel bad. It's sort of a kind of a strange mirroring. And again, where
Dan,
the one person ends and the other person begins, it's just kind of blurred. So,
Dan, you are
so
making it too complicated. Normally, and this is one of the rules as a general rule I use. I say I never ever think about the consequences. I do it
no,
because it's
what?
right. Seriously, just listen to this for one more time. I'm going to repeat it. I say I never ever think about the consequences. We don't know the consequences. We think of the consequences. Maybe we are correct in one generation, two generation, but the long term of it, we don't know. So the principle that I use is this. I say I don't kiss ass because I need to. I don't kick ass because I can. I do it because it's right. Of course, you get questioned. How
No,
do you
man.
know? How do you
No,
know it's right?
no,
Then I would
no, no,
say,
no, no,
no, no,
no.
no.
There's some things you
Bo,
just don't. Some things you don't say to people, and you don't do.
Bo,
Right?
you just
Like you know.
Bo, let me finish. You try to do it the most right way. That's all, and that's all you can do. What happens next? And if I realize I made a mistake, you know what? I will apologize and go ahead. But let's see what Claire has to say.
Oh, just when Dan had said that, we're taught, like, conditioned to, mirror or put a mask up, it kind of made me realize, like, how young we're conditioned to do this. I was talking to my friend the other day, and she has an autistic son, and the doctor had told her that if she wants to get him diagnosed, she has to do it before the age of 5 because, around the age of 5 and older, children start learning how to mask it, and it's actually called masking. And when you're talking about autism, it's actually called masking.
Mhm.
Anyways, but they learn how to do it so young that you want to get them if you want to get them diagnosed, right? You have to do it younger before they, are conditioned to do that. And I've also kind of noticed, like, it's the same with, maybe they're not diagnosed ADHD, but like children are always told to, like, sit still, and, like, that's just a simplified version of this. And so
Mhm,
that's,
mhm.
like, also learning that, maybe that what they're doing is wrong, so they're not going to learn that they have, ADHD or whatever. Maybe they don't have ADHD, but you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to realize because they've been hiding that part of themselves for so long because they've been taught to. And I just, when he said that, I was like, yeah, it starts really young. And yeah, anyways.
Just to be aware of the situation, I think is one of the most important part. I know that with this podcast, we are not solving the problems, but we are shedding some light on the subject. And I'm hoping people, they see the different views that are existing, and then hopefully they will have a better understanding again that the masking parts, yes, sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't, and then sometimes really it's not masking, and anyway, and then to have a better judgment. Keller, go ahead, please.
Oh, I just also wanted to add that when Dan was speaking earlier, he about the truth and reconciliation. I know it was off topic, but anyways, Dan, I just wanted to say when you had said that you asked your daughter to talk about it instead of, just expressing your views and telling her that that was right, that I really appreciated that because I grew up in a home where my parents were always trying to get me to express my views and like they would still share theirs, but we would try to meet in the middle. And I think that really shaped who I am as a person and how good conversations I can have now, because I know a lot of people that you know they've just been instilled like this is right, this is right, this is right, and they've grown up that way, and like they can't have a conversation seeing the other side. Anyways, I just really like that you did that to your daughter because I really liked when my parents wanted to talk about it with me.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you.
Anyway, I think we have covered a good part of this. I'm hoping again at the end, as I said, that everybody has a better understanding of better view of the different views that are there about this topic mask, and then they can make their own understanding. But again, at the end of the day, try to be as honest as possible. When you're honest, you show your flaws, and then you can make a decision to correct those flaws because people will let you know to correct them or not. But when you pretend every time, if we live a life that every time is just masking it, and we are not ourselves, at one point really we forget who we are. And I have run into those kind of people too that they don't know. And if you are one of those people, then one of the things that you can do is start from a low-hanging fruit. Try for the things that clearly it's not you and you're pretending. Work on that one. Try not to do it. And then you might be surprised. People will like you more than you think. People like you more when you see that you show your flaws and that you're not trying to be perfect, because nobody is. We all have something wrong, and it's okay. And it's the responsibility of the others to accept us, the way that we are. Of course, again, if the flaw that we have is too big, then it's our responsibility to fix it. But fix it really inside out, meaning that really we work on it versus, again, to pretend. No, not the pretension part of it. Anyway, I hope that this has been helpful for everybody. I'm sure we will discuss the same subject in different ways, because normally I say this, and might be something that surprised you. I would say for 100 problems in the society, the solution are a few things. What I'm trying to say, for example, honesty is one of them. And then the other one, being kind. Some of the things, I will get to this. I'm trying to figure it out myself exactly. That, normally as a physiotherapist, I'm a physical therapist. Normally, I would say in my profession, for almost any body part, almost 90% of any injuries, let's say to the neck, shoulder, or things, are a few, only 2, 3 injuries are there that they build 90% of the problems. And the solution for that 2, 3, which makes the 90% of the problem, the solution is a few exercises, a few things, very limited. The translation is this: 20% of the effort, resolves 90% of the problem, or 80 to 90% of the problem. And with this podcast, we are trying to address that 20% only. We are not a specialist, but we are trying to put to shed some light, on the subject, that we can again make it a bit more clear and just fix a few basic things. And in life, generally, I'm saying, in life, if there are a few things that we start working on, it will fix a lots of other problems that we never even thought about how to fix them. This is an inside out fixing versus an outside in fix. Outside in fix is sometimes like videos that they say, don't do these 7 things, behave like this during this situation. When they are telling you how to act during those scenarios. But then for those scenarios they told you, but about the other scenarios that they happen. So, and that is an outside in, and it doesn't work as good personally. I mean, that is has been my experience. Anyway, I hope that everybody enjoyed this conversation. And as always, I say life is simple. We make it complicated. I would love to hear, the viewers, if you can just make some comments and the comments about your own, first of all, if you want to say something about the podcast to see which ones were the highlights, where we screwed up, I really love to hear that too, as well as, if you have something to share with that potentially we can bring it up in some other podcast. Anyway, thanks everybody, and till the next podcast. Bye now.